Okay. I don't know if this is recording, but I don't know exactly how to say your name. Keyannie. Um, Here's the answer to your questions. You asked, does early lack of emotional support affect children, and specifically when they grow to be adults? And I would say that the answer is yes. And even though you gave some really great examples of how people were able to overcome the effects or to like rise above what happened to them, it still doesn't change the fact that studies have proven that when children have the lack of emotional support and they don't get the interactions that they normally would with people, that it affects the size of their brain and the way that the brain can even work. And so the cognition, their ability to learn and reason is greatly diminished. And we read that in our textbooks under both chapters 4 and 5, I believe. So you can go in there and look for just a kind of a brief, like, I don't know, kind of overview of it. I've learned it more in depth, but we'll just leave it at that. And if you have any more questions for me, like, go ahead and ask, because I love to share what I've learned. But basically, the brain needs to have you have the interactions with people. Remember how we learned that experiences is what learning is, and learning is what helps us to grow. Well, the brain needs those interactions to have connections formed. And so if you don't learn those connections, like, don't remember if it was in this class or my learning and memory class, but what happens is if those aren't formed during the critical sensitive periods, then they cannot be formed to the same degree later in life. And that's why I say that you can rise above it, but it surely doesn't replace what could have been. So you are affected in such a way for your entire life, academically and even behaviorally. One thing that I found when I was looking into becoming Teachers for America was that I wanted to see if I would be able to effectuate any change, because going into becoming a Teacher for America, I was taking a reduction in salary by about half of what I could make as a substitute teacher. And so I wanted to really make sure that what I was doing it for would pay off, if not monetarily, more so emotionally for the kids. And that's what I've always wanted to do in life, is make a difference. So I looked up to see if these programs like Head Start and whatnot actually make the change that they are intended to make. And one statistic that really, really made me go, okay, I'm going to do this. And that is that behaviorally, there was a reduction of 21% in crime rates between kids who had early childhood experiences where they were supported and taught and nurtured in these type of programs like Head Start and whatnot. So instead of 51%, it was like 30%. So to me, that alone makes my time invaluable to teaching these kids that they have it within themselves to, be different and act different and make different choices. And that's also something that goes back to how our brains develop. When we don't make those connections in our brain, then they are, remember how we learned how from that article, that they don't learn to have the connections with in their brains, and they're not able to have that in the prefrontal cortex of the brain. They have where they're lacking the emotional control that other kids get. And so I know that there's probably people out there who rise above and whatnot, but that's not typically what happens. And that's why I think there's greater increase in just how we don't have the type of students that we had like 10 years ago even. I think that there's, even in not lower income places, in places where you have rich kids who are growing up on video games and that's their babysitter, and they don't make those connections and they don't get that type of like interaction with adults and whatnot. They don't learn to self-regulate, and they don't learn to uh, control themselves and behave differently. And so we are seeing all these like high rises in anxiety and whatnot because they don't know how to handle their emotions. And so that's my video response to you. And thanks for asking and letting me share what I do know. And like I said, I really, really, if you have any other questions, please come to me and let me know what they are so that I can like share. Thanks. Have a great day, week.